Big news this season, we are now on Patreon. If you enjoy what you hear and you want more content, ad-free episodes, or you just want to support the show, please head over to patreon.com/When Life Gives You Lemons, Emma Levy, or find us on the Patreon app. A small subscription fee for the price of just a little coffee makes a huge difference and will help keep me recording. Now on with this week's show. You are listening to When Life Gives You Lemons, the podcast that speaks to high-performing individuals who have been through adversity but come back stronger. I'm your host, Emma Levy, a physiotherapist who has helped elite athletes on their way to Olympic success. This podcast was born following my own trauma when I was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of just 36. Sat in the chemo chair, I set myself a goal to start a podcast to explore the power of resilience and mindset. Today I'm welcoming Rob Pope to the podcast. Rob is the real-life Forrest Gump. In 2016, Rob quit his job as a vet, flew to America and started to run. He didn't stop until he had run across America almost 5 times, a distance of 15,700 miles, which kept him running for 422 days. He became a record breaker, being the first person to ever complete this route, as well as becoming the first person to cross the US 4 times on foot. Rob has written a book recounting his run titled Becoming Forrest, one man's epic run across America. And he now hosts a popular Red Bull podcast, How to Be Superhuman, and he lives in Liverpool, where he works as a vet. Rob, it's amazing to be here in Liverpool today. I've never been to Liverpool, but so pleased I've come, even if it is just for a few hours. So thank you for talking to me today.
No worries. Welcome to the home of the Beatles.
When you hear like that run recounted, so 422 days, how does that make you feel now? Like, do you realise how crazy that was?
Yeah, like literally in the last week, I ran across the country in just over 2 days. And that was really hard. And now I think I did that 210 times, 211 times.
It's just ridiculous. Why? Why did you do it? There must have been a why, because you can't embark on something like that without a why.
I just felt like running. Sorry, mate, you did set that up, though. You did set that up. It all comes down to basically a motivation that's very close to my heart. And, you've gone through some stuff yourself. So my mum went through some stuff, but didn't come out the other side of it. She came out for a bit, and then she went back in. And so she went back to law school, was top of a year, and she was flying, and she would have made a big difference, I'm sure of that. But before she died, she said to me to do one thing in my life that made a difference. And I thought I was on my way to doing that, being a vet. Maybe I still do. Maybe I've made a difference today. But it was only when the penny dropped that I had the opportunity to make a very big difference that I thought, this is it. This is the moment. And I'd wanted to run across America for about 10 years, but I decided I was going to make it a bit tasty, a bit bigger.
What gave you the idea, though, 10 years before you did it? Like, was there a role model you looked up to, or where did the seed of the idea come?
Well, I read a book by a chap called Nick Baldock who ran across America. And literally, the book's just called Running Across America. And the way he described it, it was just like, God, that sounds so good. And I was like, I love my running. And I thought, what a way to see a country, And, he just took the opportunity. He was good enough to reply to, some questions about how you do something like this to me. But it took, 10 years from me sending that email to actually putting my shoes on.
Okay. And were you a good runner as a kid?
I was all right. In my school, I was probably, I was always in the top 3, sometimes top 1. And I was probably in the top 5 in the city, Merseyside,
Always long distance.
Yeah, well, cross country, it's not really long at those days. These days you have kids doing daft distances at a really young age, which probably isn't helpful to them. But then it was probably 3 miles, but we never really took it seriously at school. We would train at school at lunchtimes. Sometimes it's an excuse just to go to the chippy rather than have school dinners. But we were decent. And but I never really had an idea that I had this in me.
Because you did the challenge when you were like 38, is that right?
The same age Tom Hanks was when he filmed Forrest Gump, and I didn't know that at the start. I looked it up midway through in like one of these bits of downtime, you're thinking, I wonder how old he was.
Yeah.
38, so it was meant to be.
So what about as an adult? Had you done marathons? Had you done ultra marathons?
Yeah, I did my first marathon when I was 18, did London, and then I actually did New York the next 2 years as well. And I think I was like the youngest Brit to have done New York at the time. I hadn't done any ultras. In fact, I only really got properly seriously into it when I moved to Australia, and I joined an athletics club just to get some friends when I was out there. Really, I figured my footballing days were over. And
was that in your 20s?
No, this was 35.
Oh,
you know,
okay.
so I moved over there for like sort of 3 years, and I got into a really good club, a club that has since had 3 Olympians. I don't think they had any before I came, so I claim full responsibility for that. But I actually ended up getting picked to run for Victoria and managed to win the Australian Marathon Championships.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you were quite good back
Yeah,
then.
I was pretty decent.
Okay,
Yeah,
but
I think the emphasis might be on was now, but my club record at Western Athletics has since been taken by Jack Rayner, who was one of Kipchoge's pacers, and he took a good solid 15 minutes off my record, so I'll let him have that one.
What was your record?
It was 2:27.
Oh, so it's pretty fast.
Yeah, it's all right.
Okay, okay. So you've got the seed in your mind that you're going to do this run around America. Your mum said to you, do something that's going to make a difference.
Yeah.
And then I imagine you sit down and you plan it, and I imagine that's quite an operation.
It would do, but my planning is different to most people's planning. My planning was just like looking up cool places to stay, and then I like to obsess about certain often superfluous things. So we decided that the cheapest way to do it, we being me and my girlfriend, like none of this, like, you know, people now are going for like runs and like they're having crews of like 8 people looking after
Physio,
them.
nutritionist, physiologist.
Like I wouldn't say no to any of those things, but because I did it without, I can claim the model high ground now. And,
so it was just you and your girlfriend?
Yeah. And so we decided the cheapest way to do it, because we didn't have any sponsorship, was we'd saved up money to deposit for a house, and we thought, oh, well, that'd be good. And, you know, it was before the age of TikTok and everything. So we set out, we thought we could buy an old camper van and we will sell it at the end, and hopefully we'll maybe even spin it for a profit.
Okay, so this was your house deposit you were using?
Yeah. Well, house deposit, so we used about half of it on a like this like proper old beat up RV. It was like massive as well. It was like a cruise ship. And then we thought we'll sell that at the end and we might even make money. That didn't materialize. And then the rest of it was, you know, your day-to-day stuff. Buying food, buying gas, and, you know, paying for campsites as and when we could afford them. So.
And you started in Alabama like Forrest Gump did?
In Mobile, not Greenbow, because Greenbow doesn't exist. They made it up for the film, yeah. They actually filmed a lot of that in South Carolina, but Greenbow has never existed. It probably will exist at some point, because America has new places springing up all the time, but maybe Alabama's town planners need to get on that, market it.
And you got the buzz cut, like Forrest and everything?
Absolutely. The high and tight. Yeah.
That's
Number
just brilliant.
27 in Fluke's Barbers in downtown Mobile. So if you're ever short on time, just go in there and say 27. I'll sort you out.
And then you just let the beard grow, and you've still not shaved it off.
Well, it has gone on a number of occasions. Sort of, it tends to come back, mostly because I'm a very lazy man. And yeah, the only thing I did on the actual run was I would trim the tash, because when you're eating burgers and wings and stuff like that, and, you know, sugary drinks, the tash can become a bit of a nightmare.
So what did an average day look like? How many miles were you doing per day?
So the average is the total average is about 37. Real world average was probably about 41, 42, because initially I was quite cautious. You know, I didn't have any major plan on how long it was going to take. I knew I wanted to be I had to be at Santa Monica by 90 days after I started. That's like quite a relaxed pace, really.
Why did you have to be there after
visa?
90?
Yeah. So I didn't think I could do the whole thing. Like the only person that thought I could do the whole thing was my girlfriend. So I just got the tourist visa because that's like $6 or something, isn't it?
And that's 3 months.
That's 3 months. And then so when I got to Santa Monica, it was a case of flying back to the UK and then just going, yeah, I might need a longer one. And so I got the tourist visa, which allowed me multiple 6 months at a time. And then...
Right. So when you set off, what was your goal initially? Was it not to do the 4 and a bit?
That was the big goal, but it was such a big goal. I didn't even want to speak about it. You know, at the end of the film, he goes, I'm pretty tired. I think I'll go home now. You know, I'm not going to do the accent there, you know. I nearly did it. I wouldn't say it as if it was going to summon up some evil spirit, you know, like saying Beetlejuice 3 times. And I would say I'm pretty tired. And I'd say, I wonder if I'll ever say, I think I'll go home now. But I would never say the whole thing. And yeah, so the visa, not saying that. My athletic goal was always to run. That was my original goal, to run across the country once. Once I got to Santa Monica, because I managed to touch from Mobile, Alabama, I touched the Gulf of Mexico and then went to the Pacific. And then I could say I've run across America. But then after that, it was for the 2 charities, you know, and so them being the World Wildlife Fund and Peace Direct, so chosen because when you see Forrest going across the Mississippi in the film for the 4th time, they ask him why he's running, as you did before, and he comes up with I just felt like running. But they ask him, is he running for women's rights, the homeless, world peace, the environment, and animals? And isn't it weird that a film that is like, what, you know, 1993, so 32 years old now, that those 5 things would still be massively on the agenda, you know. But so I picked those 2 charities because they kind of neatly encompass all of those 5 things.
How much did you
going to make a
fundraise?
difference. In total, around 68 grand.
That's amazing.
That's what I reckon. Yeah, no, it's my biggest disappointment of the whole run. I genuinely thought we could have raised $1 million. Because,
$1 million?
well, yeah, I think it's the most famous run in long distance run in history. And, you know, people have, you know, there's been about 5 or 6 people who've run around the world, but it's not as cool. It's just not, you know. And so I thought, you know, if it catches the imagination, but that is probably like sort of, you've seen the very recent more slick operations such as Russ's run, and you know they spent 250k on promotion.
Well, that's it.
And that's the thing.
You didn't even have a sponsor, did you?
But it worked. You know, so at the end of the day, so everyone just goes, that's ridiculous to spend that amount of money. I just go, well, not if you raise $1 million. It's not, you know, and so basically you speculate to accumulate, and he smashed that side of things, you know, and so would I have done it differently in hindsight? No, that's a real tricky question. Because the run, personally for myself, like sort of, it was perfect as it was. We had that time together, me and my missus, which could have broken us, you know, at some points it threatened to. And then afterwards I was solo. You know, I was solo for over 50% of the run.
Oh, so she was just with you for the first 50%?
So up until Santa Monica and then to Tennessee. And we realised if we stayed together, we wouldn't have had enough money to have even got to the second ocean. So we knew that. We knew that by the time we got to Santa Monica. So when we went back out, we said to Nadine, right, how far can you get me? Please get me as far as you can across this country. And so we booked tickets to Nashville. And then I think about 3 days before Nashville, I got to Jackson. I'd torn my quadriceps at this point. Sort of in the last stages of Arkansas, and I physically could not, like my sort of vastus medialis, which is, for those who don't really know, one of your quadriceps muscles. You could literally stick your finger in it and it would take about 6 seconds to come back to normal things. So grade 2 tear. It wasn't grade 3, it was all right. And I couldn't walk 30 meters to the campsite toilets. And I said on day 3, so we'd not done anything for 2 days. And I said to Nadine, I said, listen, if I can't walk to the toilet this morning, I'm just going to come back with you later to Nashville, you know, so we'll just have 2 nice days and we can fly home together. I could walk to the toilet and I said, let's go back to the start. Let's see where we dropped off the other day. and I managed to walk 27 miles.
27 miles?
Yeah, 3 days after tearing my quad. Next day,
With
I ran 33.
pain or no pain?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you had pain?
Yeah, a lot of pain, you know. And then the next day was like 33 miles. And then I started to introduce a gradual run walk. So I would run a quarter of a mile, walk 3/4. And I did that for most of the day. Day 2 was run half, walk half. And then I gradually built up to my normal routine. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
And the rest of it was running, or did you do a run walk?
Well, sort of early on, I got my first injury about 400 miles in. I got anterior tibial tendonitis, and that's generally a 6 to 8 week layoff, massive restriction on stuff. Now, but even before then, Nadine said I was running too quick, so I was running like 720, 730 miles, just like continually.
Yeah.
But hey, I was quite excited, wasn't I? And I was eating all this like mad sugar fuel, so I was flying. But it didn't feel fast. I was sweating because it was 38 degrees and 100% humidity. But I was like, I'm not running too fast. I'm the runner here, You stick to crewing. And so I should have stuck to her advice. And eventually a chap who's also run across America was said, like, Rob, you're just doing this too fast. That's why you got injured. You probably got shin splints. I went to a physio. It was anterior tibial tendonitis. We taped it up. I then introduced a bit of going back to the typical day question, let's break down a 40-mile day. So 5 8-mile runs, and I would often run 4, walk half, run 2, walk half, run 1, break. And then the break would allow me to refuel. Even the little half-mile breaks would just allow blood probably to escape from this, sort of a compressed tendon, and then that's pretty much what I did all the way through. But, nobody runs from start to finish on a Transcon. Anyone who says they do's been filling the Strava.
Yeah. And were there rest days within all that, or was it consecutive every single day?
Every day. The only rest days we had, so 2 days when I tore my quad. I had a 2-day layup with really bad gluteal syndrome, and I got like sort of a chap who I'd met in Kansas. I broke down outside his house in Alabama, not even knowing where his house was, and he was just like, yeah, I'll come and get you. And so he took me to a doctor, and I got a steroid shot in one bum cheek and a non-steroidal in the other, and that got me going. I had 5 days with food poisoning, and we had a day and a half when the RV's generator broke 100 miles outside of Vegas. Now it's just like, let's just get to Vegas and we'll have the day and a half there rather than the desert. So that was cool. Yeah.
And what about like nutrition? Were you on it? Were you like eating all the right stuff?
When I was with Nadine, like sort of, I would generally have a protein shake and a porridge thing in the morning. Then I would do my first run. Then I'd have like a chocolate bar and like a can of Coke or something. Then at lunchtime every day, I'd have these sandwiches.
Coke.
Yeah. I can't believe I said that in Liverpool. I had some chicken as well, And so I'd have a ham salad sandwich with Catalina dressing. I didn't even know what Catalina dressing was until I had it, but it's Boss, and I've never seen it in the UK. I'd have a load of crisps, some more chocolate. I might have a donut, and then I'd go out, and I would be that sort of pretty similar. In the evening, we'd have like Idaho mash sachets, frozen veg, and then like sort of, a source of protein, whatever we could find. And then a beer every night.
No, you didn't.
Yeah. That was the whole thing, sort of. So it was at least one beer every night. The night of the original presidential election, I think I had about 7, So we were in a saloon in Tombstone, Arizona. And so we were watching it on the telly, and it was history for better or for worse. Yeah. And when the result came in, the landlord, wearing a big massive cowboy hat, was like, "So sure looks like we ain't gonna have no Clinton in the White House. I say shots for everyone." The whole place went nuts, and I was just like, sort of, "I'll have a tequila." And this just goes. She looks at me first of all and just goes. I was like, "It's free." She's like. Doesn't matter that it's free. That and you've got to run 40 miles tomorrow, so I think you should probably get off. And so we staggered back to the RV, and then off we popped the next day.
That's mad. And every morning when you woke up, how did your body feel? Did it feel ready to go, or was you sore?
Yeah, it's always sore, you know. And so like eventually I would actually, especially when I started with the deep gluteal stuff, and someone just goes, "Oh, how long have you been suffering from deep gluteal syndrome, Mr. Pope?" Well, in Alabama it would have been 2,000 miles from North Dakota, 500 down to San Francisco, 4,000 across, and then about another 1,000. So that's about 7,500 miles of that. And so I would generally then start walking 2 miles at the start of every day just to try and put some joint fluid and, you know, lubrication into like joints and tendon sheaths and everything like that. And so, you know, as I said, no physio. And a lot of this, as I said, I was on my own. So I had like a little racquetball, which I call Wilson. You see, as I'm going down a Tom Hanks kick, and a one of those, you know, tiger tail things. But to be honest, I mostly use that as a potential weapon to scare off stray dogs. So
that's terrifying.
You know, yeah.
But so half of it, Nadine, your girlfriend, was there, and then she left, and then you were pushing a buggy, weren't you?
Yeah.
So is that even harder, I imagine, pushing a buggy with all your belongings in it?
Yeah, like so on the flat, you don't know, because it was a good one. Baby jogger performance discontinued sadly because it was the king. It was the Rolls Royce of jogging strollers. But on the flat, it was fine. Downhill was a problem because you would genuinely have to stop it running away with you. And so, you know, you'd be leaning back and, you know, putting even more stuff on your quads. Just go, don't these things have brakes? They do. But if I had the brake, in, like, you know, able to work, it would tend to rub on the tyre regardless of how I positioned it. So I just chose to use me as the brake. And then uphill. Uphill was obviously a nightmare. That was probably one of the few occasions when I would get out of breath. So yeah, whenever I was pushing the buggy uphill, running over Highway 190, sort of over the Mississippi for the first time, where I did I think it was a 530 mile, because it was literally 4 lanes of traffic, no pavement, 200-foot drop, and like a very low fence. So so I made sure I got over that. I got over it quicker than Guns N' Roses play Welcome to the Jungle. Because that was, I just thought, if I'm going down, as I'm plummeted, I'd be like, Axel would love
I was going to ask you though if you listened to music.
Yeah.
The whole time?
A lot of the time. I'm not really one for books and podcasts when I'm running because I like looking at stuff and I'm thinking about things, and then so I'll be then interested. I just hear something, oh God, what was that? And so then I want to go back, and you know, my phone was a greasy, sweaty mess as it was without having to go back for an audio book or a podcast. So I'd often like have the first run of the morning quiet, and then I would basically just put my music collection on shuffle. It was only actually when I got about halfway through in North Dakota that I discovered the joy of local radio. Like America's got tons of local classic rock stations, and it was actually, no, it wasn't North Dakota. It was just before. It was Minnesota, because I found this station and it was request hour. And I requested going through Minneapolis, Purple Rain, and it was like 30 odd degrees that day. It was chucking it down with rain. It wasn't chucking it down with rain. It was I wanted it to be chucking it down with rain, so I requested Purple Rain. And going down the highway, people must have thought I was mad because I was like just, you know, pushing this stroller, singing Prince at the top of my voice, and it was kind of fulfilled because I found someone who had a sprinkler on the lawn, so I got underneath it, and it was eventually sprinkling with rain.
What about the mental challenge? Like, I've spoken to other ultra athletes who tell me that they think the mental strength, the mental fortitude is kind of more important than the physical strength. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, again, it depends sort of where you're at. Like for me, it was just a lot of concentration because I am obviously a lot faster than I would be running there, so I'd have to limit myself, and I often liken it to being a bit like a Formula One car, you know, so you have to manage your fuel, you have to manage your tires, because if you don't, you know, if I was getting out of breath, something was going wrong. You know, I had to be like, sort of, why I'm out of breath, and I'm not one for like looking at heart rate or anything like that. And so I would just trundle along. But the tough things, you said, were you ready to run in the morning? And I was never really ready to run. And people said, did you ever want to quit? And I was just like, especially when I was on my own, most days.
Most days.
Yeah, but wanting to quit doesn't mean you're going to quit. You know, did I want to go into work today? Not really. you know.
Yeah.
but it went in.
That thought was there.
Yeah. And the thing is, I would just literally say to myself, you know, if you had like a really horrible boss and you just sort of said, I'm not coming in today, you know, they would be frowning upon you. I didn't have any horrible bosses. If I'd have told the charities or like Nadine or my friends that I was just sick of it and I was winding it in, the people who I cared about wouldn't have minded. You know, some people on social would have been mean, but I'm not being funny. Whatever.
Yeah. And were you lonely?
Not really. Yeah. Like sort of, I was just busy, you know, so, you know, I think sort of loneliness is often worse when you got too much time on your hands to think, you know, but I was always thinking of something to do, you know, like where was I staying that night? Where was I going to eat? Oh my God, when is this mile going to end? You know, sort of like, do you reckon that lamppost is half a mile away? Cool, just 2 of them, I can have a rest.
Yeah.
And I kept in touch with people on social, obviously Nadine and like sort of friends and family back home. But then you also had the people on the road, and Forrest Gump is such an iconic thing, you know, sort of, there was an occasion in Texas where I was literally desperate to have a poo. And I mean, it was about to come out. And as Forrest would say, when I was hungry, I ate. When I was tired, I slept. And when I had to go, I went. This was mowed cotton fields or harvested cotton fields. It was completely bare. 3 houses. I knock on 1. No answer. Knock on 2. No answer. Knock on 3. Old fella answers the door. I politely ask to go in, use his facilities, and embarrassed I leave. And he's just going, sit down. I want to talk to you. And I'm like, well, I can't really say no, you know, especially after the way I'd left his bathroom. And he goes, have you ever seen a movie called Forrest Gump? And I was like, yes. And he goes, you look just like the guy. And I was just like, well, I told him a story. And he basically explained that 2 people in the other house were his daughter and his daughter-in-law, who'd been trying to put him in a care home for the last 10 years, rather than farming all this cotton. All this cotton was farmed by Gerald, right? And then he just goes, if I tell them I watched this movie for the first time last night, never seen it, and on the day I watch it, you knock on my door and you come in, you use my bathroom, I'm going to be in the care home.
That's brilliant.
Well, honestly, there are encounters like that. Like, you know, there's obviously more of them in the book, but there were 3 times as many that didn't make the book. You know, I've got them all written down, you know, and so if it wasn't for the physical and online support of the American people, I wouldn't have got to the end because, of course we ran out of money. I didn't just get to Tennessee and be almost skint and then wing it to the end, like sort of, you know, on a pot noodle. You get people shaking your hands and there'd be a $20 note in there, you know. Oh, wow. I had a fellow who was in the Marines and he came and he just sort of, he gave me $100. And he was just like, sort of, just so proud of this. And like, sort of, you know, Forrest Gump has got a massive sort of status among veterans because he did it the right way. And it looks like you're doing it the right way. And I was just like, oh, mate, you know, what can you say to that?
Was there any dangerous encounters with like animals or people?
Yeah, like sort of, well, cars were obviously an ever-present danger. And like I've got a photo of a huge, you know, sort of big rig coming up behind me. And like my mate was just like, he's genuinely going to get hit by this. And I was unaware of it. But then, drivers on the road, I had a couple of people deliberately, I think, sort of, you know, test my nerve. Either that or they were looking at the phone. I had a lorry jackknife in front of me and literally I would say, it came to a stop about 20 foot in front of me. And, you know, you've never smelt so much burnt rubber. And I was just there. I had Pram Solo at the time. And so I was just like, didn't see my life flash before my eyes, but I couldn't move. I wasn't frightened either. I was just standing there going, it's probably going to hit me, this. Yeah, it's probably dead. Not dead, stopped, excellent. You know, and then I was just like, you know, it was only afterwards that I did it, but I got charged by a bull moose, you know, sort of in Idaho, and had to literally plaster myself, not behind the tree. I couldn't get behind the tree because there were like thorn bushes. I had to just glue myself to the front of it. And then I heard all the branches crashing that were in the build up to the tree. But he went into the river and he went around me, and I was just like,
I mean, that would have been it.
yeah, oh yeah, 100%. You know, sort of, and that was one where I had enough time. I was genuinely scared with that one. The Jack Lorry, I wasn't. I don't know why, but this one, I was. Yeah,
but things
I
like
could have needed
bears,
Gerald's house again.
I picture like bears around that part.
There would definitely be saw bears on there, like, and so there were ones like where I had to sort of like either hold my sort of position for a bit. Elk as well. Elk are very dangerous, especially when they got sort of youngsters. And a police car was just like, you shouldn't be on this road. And I'm just like, well, legally I can be. And he's just like, yeah, but there's elk there. And I said, well, no, I've got to get past them. And he said, okay, well, I'll drive and I will shield you from them. And so he basically does it until I'm level with the elk, and then just drives off. And I'm just like, mate, what's going on?
You there.
Yeah, no, exactly. Maybe you're not meant to sneak up on him from behind or something, and he knows more than me, but it wasn't great. And the closest I think I came to death though was it was in upstate New York, just crossing into Pennsylvania, and I saw a fella. If I was going to profile him, I would say scary neo-Nazi former bodybuilder dude or linebacker dude. That's probably more appropriate, you know. So shirtless, tats everywhere, skinhead. Probably weighed about sort of 280 pounds, something like that. So what's that in kilos? A lot, sort of 125k or something. And he threw a rubbish bag across his garden, which is fair enough. He can do whatever he wants. And then it was only when this bag hit the floor and it rolled over that it had legs. And I was just like, that's a dog. He just threw his dog across the garden. So, like, I'm pretty certain I'm not allowed to go full scouse swearing on this podcast, but like sort of, let's just say I said to him with a number of what would be bleeped out expletives, don't kick your dog. And he then just went, what did you say? And I just went, don't, your dog. And so he just started running towards me. With walking, then I started walking away. Then he started running towards me. The dog wagging its tail, running after him, And but like sort of before I actually challenged him, he walked over to this dog and kicked it, like sort of literally. So it wasn't like just a playful thing. Yeah. He volleyed this dog, and so he starts sprinting after me. I've got Pram Solo. It's a slight uphill, not much, but it is, And but I've got enough, and so 200 meters later, I see he's got hands on his knees. Literally gasping for air. And he gets up and I'm just looking at him. He looks at me and then he turns and he runs back to his house. I'm just like, you are kidding me. No. Because this is now escalated. So I get on my phone. I think, well, I can't outrun the car. The only thing I can do is protect myself. And so I took a screen grab of where I was on the map, took a photo, and then sent them in a message to Nadine saying, because I was solo at this point, saying, if you don't hear from me in the next 2 or 3 hours, you've got to call the police and direct them to this location to potentially look for my body.
She must have been terrified to receive that text.
She's a bugger for picking up messages for the start, right? And so she picks it up a little bit after the period and then looks at it, calls me, and she's like, I was in very rural area. It goes, welcome to the AT&T voice messaging. Please leave your message after the tone. And so she's just like, dead or not dead? And she said, he'll probably be all right. I'll call him later. And it was all right. I actually found my way to this place. It was like kind of a cafe, and I told them about the encounter, and they were basically sort of saying, yeah, like, so he's probably done that to scare you, but
so he's not coming back.
Well, I think they were trying to reassure me, but they gave me a free can of Pepsi, so I was just like,
terrifying.
Yeah, exactly.
So we talked a lot about kind of the challenges, but do you have a highlight of the whole time?
Oh, there's, you can almost put highlights in categories, like reaching the oceans. The first one, the athletic ambition, Nadine, we'd done it. A load of friends as well. That was great.
What, they met you at the end?
Yeah, so that was perfect. And the second crossing, on my own, but my friend Jamie had come over and he was on his bike. And so as I ran past him to the lighthouse, you know, first of all, Santa Monica Pier, the second one is the lighthouse in Forrest Gump.
Wow.
And I ran past him, it was mist. I was listening to a song called The Lighthouse by Interpol, which is dead atmospheric, and I had it on loop for the last couple of miles. And I ran past Jamie and he goes, "You all right, mate?" And I'm like, no. The third crossing was great because that was just me and Nadine, just on the beach. We chose where it was. Nobody knows in the film where it would be. We chose it, so it's on Bandon Beach in Oregon if anyone wants to go to the point. That was special. The fourth one was great because, well, I had to fly home for a very special reason. Well, one was to renew my visa, the final thing, but the one was because at this point Nadine was pregnant. And, you know, sort of she'd left me in San Francisco to basically be pregnant the whole time on her own while I ran across America for the fourth time. And so I got there, and this is the only crossing I got to on my own. So just literally me and Pram solo. And as I got there, a dolphin just goes out of the water like that. And I'm just like,
oh my God. But you're all alone. What, like, were you just...
Well, I had literally about 30 seconds, and then this lad, Matthew Nans, he was 15 at the time. He looked like a young Peter Parker, you know, sort of a photographer. And he just goes, "Man, if I take a picture?" And I was just like, "Mate, that will be optimal," you know. And I've got this super pro photo of like sort of me and Pram solo with this gorgeous sunset. You know, it was the day that Mo Farah won Sports Personality of the Year as well, so we can trace that date. And then then the final one was just epic. So I was super depressed on the last run. I always thought that was. I thought the fourth leg was going to be the middle child, you know. The one I just want to get it over with. The fifth one, I thought it was going to be like a lap of honour, you know, just glory, you know, the whole time. Yeah. But I was completely skinned. I was living day to day at this point. There was either 20 quid in my account or there wasn't. You know, then I was racked with injury. I had things like my food poisoning, you know, sort of rubbish.
And you had a kid by this point?
No, not at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I had to go back, and the main reason why I was depressed was because I knew that Nadine and B wouldn't be able to be there at the end. Now, I could finish the whole run. I knew at my time I could finish it with about a week or so to spare and get back. But then I was just sat at the border of Alabama and Mississippi, and I was sat, lovely sunny day but freezing cold, January, and I was just like, what's the point? I said, literally, what's the point in getting to the end? I'm not going to be able to tell the story in like their company because they'll just be like sort of, you know, Nadine has sacrificed so much to be there for me. And I thought, you know, I'll be in a pub going, yeah, and it was so good. And then going, yeah. And so I thought, what I'm going to do is I'm going to beat Forrest's distance, which is 15,248 miles, get to somewhere cool, which happened to be the truck stop where he gets splashed with the mud, gets the yellow T-shirt, have a nice day. So we stopped there, touched the Twin Arrows, and then I flew home. So with a week or so to go to the berth, thank God, B arrived bang on time. The week after that, I did Manchester Marathon. Yeah, my idea was to do 3 marathons, sub 3 in 3 weeks after. So, you know, so I did Boston Marathon as part of the actual run. Yeah. And I'd done that under 3. So I thought, well, I'd not done any speed work, but the form's there. So I did Manchester 1 week, then I did Brighton the next week, and then the week after that, I did London, where I set the world record, the Mickey Mouse world record. We've got to admit this, right? I was saying to you before, like, people now are claiming world records for like the fastest toothbrushing on top of Mount Snowdon this April, you know. People, get over the world record thing. Unless they're a sanctioned thing in athletics body, they don't count. Stop getting clicks. Yeah, high horse. Anyway, yeah, fastest marathon dressed as a film character.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, and you probably guess who it was.
Oh, I wonder. Yeah. So then you went back?
Then we went back, yeah.
When your baby was how old?
3.5 weeks.
No way.
Yeah. And so on a plane, little mini Winston Churchill asked to go to so she was in Vegas when she was 3.5 weeks old. We drove back to the Twin Arrows and we did the last 200 miles Flagstaff and then up to Highway 163 and we did it together. And like, you know, of all the highlights, you know, that has to be it, you know, possibly topped by the fact as well that, you know, at the end he says, I'm pretty tired, I think I'll go home now. And he walks through the crowd and everyone goes, now what are we going to do?
Yeah.
So they said that, and I said, come with me. And I turned around and went back the way I came. And they're like, you're not carrying on, are you? I said, just come with me. And then, well, something cool happened, but we'll leave that for people to find out. You can buy the book.
No. You got to tell us what happened.
So I proposed to Nadine at that point. And
what a great ending.
Yeah, exactly. And the best thing was the peer pressure of like the 30, 40 people that were there bullied her into saying yes. So there we go.
That's amazing. I mean, you must have learned an awful lot about yourself throughout that 422 days.
That was a sort of a huge thing. And so one of the things I was often, people would reach out to me who've had like mental health troubles and still do now. And I sort of, you know, I had one person sort of said if it wasn't for the run, they wouldn't have been here. And like I said, like, you know, you have to stay in touch after the run, you know, so, you know, sort of just make sure everything's okay. But I would find that my days were so invariable apart from the scenery, you know. I would get up, I would run, I would eat, I would run, I would eat, and then eventually I would sleep and I'd repeat it. So I'd find that my mood often had no bearing on what was happening that day. So everything would be perfect, weather-wise, food-wise. I'd have somewhere to stay that night and I'd be in an awful mood. You know, then a day like later, I would be feeling an injury. It would be freezing cold. I wouldn't know where I was staying and didn't have any money. And I'd be like literally singing like, you know, U2 going down the highway. And I think we've just got these natural hormonal cycles. We're never on a level, on a level. And when you're down, I think if you don't realize that, you're just thinking, oh, this is crap. Whereas I would actually just go, I know I'm going to feel better in 2 days. I 100% guarantee it. I'll be back on and up. And so then that would make this little mini crisis seem less bad. But it would at least, just say if it was an injury worry and I was in the bottom of a trough, I would just go, tell you what, why don't you just get through 2 days until your, you know, hormones are taking you back into a better place and see how you feel about the injury then. You know what? It would probably be as painful in 2 days, but I'd be like, it's all right. Same as it was 2 days ago. That's the optimistic take. It's not worse, you know. Yeah. 3 out of 10, not increasing. There we go.
And when you came home, was everything a little bit underwhelming? Like, was there a crash?
Yeah, but I didn't realise that was going to happen because when I was out there, there's a Facebook group called USA Crosses dedicated to people who've walked or ran across the States. And somebody created a topic saying, how's everybody dealing with like the post-crossing depression? And I was just like, I won't get depressed, never get depressed. You know, sort of, you know, my mum died, I've had relationships break down, we lost our house, you know, sort of all these like huge seismic events, and I've just got through it. Bomb-proof I am, can't be affected by these. But then I didn't comment on the post, by the way, you know, so I just thought, oh, it's odd. You know, it's a shame that these people have had that, you know, altered for them. But then when I came back, I found that I wasn't taking joy out of things, whether it was stuff that I was doing or whether it's stuff other people was doing. And there was never a conscious, I'm not taking joy in you doing this because it's not as cool as what I did. You know, it was more a case of, I think my body was almost going, I want that, what they're doing now, but I don't have it. Yeah. And I think it naturally drags you down. And so I think it's really important whenever you are feeling low, look back at the catalogue of things you've achieved. Now, everybody thinks that their lives, well, a lot of people think that their lives are boring, but everybody who writes their life story would have a cracking book. And if it's written well, would be a bestseller. But you don't hold enough sway by these little small things that you think aren't important, but other people think are fantastic, you know, like making a difference. So people just go, mate, you're already a vet. You know, like sort of why wasn't, you know, so I just sort of think, oh, well, you've not got the run anymore, but you're still a vet. Bloody hell, man, that's incredible. So you need to look back and almost have a mental trophy cabinet. You know, you don't get a medal for becoming a vet. You don't even get a medal for running across America. Do you get a medal for becoming Oregon State champion whilst running across America though, in the 10K? That was one of the times I was out of breath, by the way.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and I pulled both of my hamstrings doing it. So
that was worth it, though.
Only grade 1, though, so I was okay. I could carry on. I literally had 30 miles to run the next day with 2 pulled hamstrings.
Don't. It's just ridiculous. So how did you pull yourself out of that depression then?
Realising that was in it. And sort of actually just sort of, maybe somebody had commented about me being negative in person. I'm just like, I'm not negative. I'm the most positive person I know. And I just thought, ooh, I actually trust this person. And like, why would they say it? They're never normally mean to me. And then I thought, you know what? God, you have been negative. Even stuff when you've not been saying anything, you've just been going, turn the nose up at it, and then you're just thinking, wow. And so now it's like sort of, like people will reach out to me for advice on doing things like this, and I love it, like a lad reached out to me the other day, like he's a lad called Jack Faint, and he's going to be, I probably can't reveal this because I don't think he's revealed it himself yet, but he's going to be doing something cool. He's another cancer survivor as well.
Oh, wow.
He's going to be doing something cool, and it was a pleasure to advise him, and instead of just going, I nearly spilt it then, I wish I was doing that.
Yeah.
I'm just like, good luck on you, man. I've got my thing. It's up in the trophy cabinet.
Yeah. So you were able to like reflect on your achievements, basically.
But it's an odd thing. It does show the importance of people who don't mind sort of speaking truth to power, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. And your friends should always be able to do that. If you're being you should be called out for it. And if you feel you can't, your friends can't say that to you, then it might be a problem with you, Yeah, you need to have a look.
How much do you think you were driven by your mum dying and by what she said to you? How much do you think that drove you in the challenge?
80%, because the first leg was for me. It was still for the charity, but that would have happened even if if I was physically able to do it, that would have always have happened or have been attempted, and the charity would have been a byproduct. The second I turned around, it was for my mum, Kathy, and WWF and Peace Direct. Yeah. Now, I had the advantage as well as like Forrest didn't say, I'm going to run up to Mount Everest, or anything like that. He just basically went for a run and he carried on going until he was so tired he couldn't go any further. So that's what I could do, and maybe that was a comfort. Maybe that was a case of like, if I quit, then I can just say I'm pretty tired. I think, I'm pretty broken. Yeah, I have no money. I think I'll go home now. But I was never going to go, I am just physically bored of this or physically don't want to do it. I'm going to go home now, because that would have been, I referenced the Oregon 10K. The reason why that happened, it was the day before I got to the third ocean. So pretty momentous week. And Steve Prefontaine, American track and field great, was from that town, and he was killed in a car crash when he was 27. So he would have been a multiple Olympic champion, 100%. So every year they have a memorial race in the town where he's from, and they were unveiling a mural to him that day, that week. And so I said I was coming to town to the local sort of running clubs, and they said, would you like to be part of this? And I was just like, well, I'd like to come to it, but you don't need to make me a part of it because I don't want to take away from it. And they went, no, mate, you're going to be a big part of this. So a guy from Nike came along, and he was just like, why haven't we heard of you at HQ? And I was just like, I've sent you about 500 emails. And so he was a good guy. The person who was in charge at the time, who's now no longer with the company, probably as a result, I think, just ignored everything, including ghosting me when I turned up at Nike. I sat there for 6 hours waiting for a scheduled meeting, and basically they never turned up.
Oh, how terrible.
Yeah, and it was actually a real bummer, that. But then I got saved by Johnny, and Johnny sorted me out with shoes for the rest of the run, because obviously they had to be Nike because it's Forrest Gump. And anyway, he said, will you run this race the next day? I did run the race, and towards the end, I was in third, and I was closing on the lead guy, realising I could feel my hamstrings going, and I was just thinking, no, you can't do this. In fact, just let this guy with you win. But then he dropped off, And the mural is a Pre, and it says to give anything less than your best is to sacrifice the gift. And I had that in my head, and like Pre didn't mince his words, like sort of, he would, if I said I'm going to let this guy win, he'd be like, what is wrong with you, mate? So I put the hammer down. Nadine's on track finish, Nadine's in the stadium, and like she just sees me coming around the corner and just like, of course he is. Of course he is. And so go over the line. I get told I'm Oregon state champion. I'm like, I'm not from Oregon. It goes, doesn't matter. It's an open race.
Wow.
And so that comes back to the mental side of things. If I had not given anything but my best, it would have sacrificed not just the gift of being so lucky to be in this amazing situation, the gift that Nadine had given me, the gift that charities had given me to supporting me, the gift that anyone who supported the charities. So I was bearing a huge weight. If I was injured and I couldn't carry on, that was fine. If I was literally financially broken, couldn't carry on, that was fine. But, people talk about fate, people talk about whatever God they worship, something wanted that run to happen, and whatever it was, whether maybe it was just me, maybe it was just me mum, but strings were pulled.
That is mental fortitude as well, I think. What is your relationship with running these days?
Definitely because it wasn't ideal prep. People who do these transcons now are quite often very well looked after. I don't
think they drink cans of Coke.
Yeah, exactly. I was damaging my body, and I wasn't being able to repair it enough. And so actually, I think I made a deal with the devil somewhere in the deep south, saying, listen, if I can just finish this, please don't give me type 2 diabetes, and please do, just let me finish it. And even if I don't run anymore after that. Now, of course, I come back. I was very injured. I tried to train for Berlin Marathon because I had the best base of anybody in history. I think in 2017, I ran more miles than anyone on the planet. And I think it's about the third or fourth most of all time still in a year, which is wild. And but I just was so tight. I pretty much tore my pelvis apart, so got apparently one of the worst cases of osteitis pubis the MRI person had ever seen.
Wow. He
was showing me these huge bone cysts in my pelvis, but I've got back, and since I did Marathon des Sables, which went well.
That's hard.
Yeah. I came 14th off 3 weeks training.
Seriously?
So that wasn't bad.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, with a collapsed lung globe as well.
No.
So I didn't put my buff on during a sandstorm, and inhaled so much sand, one of my lung lobes got blocked, and then all the air got sucked out of it. So I thought I was having a heart attack. And then the doctor was just breath sounds, no breath sounds, clonk, clonk, clonk. He says, no, I think you got a collapsed lung globe. You should probably pull out. And I was just like, I've only got a marathon left.
So you did a marathon with a collapsed lung globe. Oh my goodness.
It is what it is.
And have you got anything in the distance? Anything you're setting your sights on?
You know what? Forrest has got a quote. He goes, I don't know if we've all got a destiny or if we're all just floating around accidental on a breeze, but maybe it's both. Maybe both are happening at the same time. And I think that pretty much means you can either relentlessly pursue your goal, or you can be willing to accept it when it comes along. And so I keep my eye on things, and as with America, it happened through circumstance. I left Australia to come back for a dream job. The dream job didn't turn out that way. And a guy completed the Forrest Gump run. But then my heart sank. But I read the newspaper article, and he'd only done the second leg, Santa Monica to Maine. And then I realised if I was sad, someone else was reading that getting sad, and someone was going to go. And so then I just got the feather and off I went, so I will be open to another feather.
But who knows when.
Yeah, I'm not going to pluck a turkey to get one.
Yeah. Rob, final question I ask all of my guests. If you could go back in time to when things were really challenging, what do you wish you could have told yourself that you know now?
That you will feel better tomorrow. And that was I only realised that sort of cycle towards the end, sort of going back to the hormones things. You will feel better tomorrow. And we also, people think of my run, the run, any run as a solo venture, but we don't achieve anything on our own, and you shouldn't try to, even on a solo thing, be open to whatever support's there, why would you want to compromise yourself? If people are willing to offer help, take it in in the good faith that it was offered.
This too shall pass. Hey.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you, Rob. It is so apt that you host a podcast called How to Be Superhuman, because I think you are 100% superhuman.
Oh, huge imposter syndrome with those guys. I'm just like, oh my God.
No, I mean, come on.
Yeah, I know on paper and stuff, but but maybe that's a good way to be.
Yeah, I mean, next time I'm struggling on a 10K, I will be trying to channel my inner Rob.
Yeah.
So thank you for talking to us. Thank you for absolutely motivating and inspiring my listeners. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.